I was in shock from the crash. I could hardly stand my feet.
Hello, this is Sam Lake. I'm the creative director of Remedy and the lead writer of original Alan Wake. Welcome to the commentary track of Alan Wake Remastered. I'm excited to talk about things that I kind of feel should not be talked about. You know, the unanswered mystery and all. I very much think that you own this now, this story, this experience, this game. You are free to find your own answers from it. Your own theories. You are free to love and hate the parts that you love and hate. Nothing I say makes any theory more official than another. It's just my theory, what I was thinking when I wrote it, but maybe I didn't see or know what it really was about. So, a spoiler alert is in order. I will talk about things here as if you had already gone on this journey. Also, potentially mentioning things of other Remedy games in similar way in the process. I will definitely say a couple of words about Control and how it ties to Alan Wake. So if you are playing for the first time, you might want to turn off this commentary from the option screen and come back to this later on.
Light. You are hurt. You should go into the light. You are only safe there.
I'm recording this in May 2021. We celebrated the 11th anniversary of the original game last week.
I have something important to tell you.
I'm very happy to be doing this. I'm very grateful for the continued love and support that all Alan Wake's fans have kept showing us.
The waves are both wilder and more serene. To its ports I've been. To its ports I've been. Do you understand?
No.
Wake up. There's no time.
I'm really happy that we got to make this remastered version, both for you, our fans, to return to it. With crisper visuals and modern technology, now we can take advantage of the power of the new platforms to offer improved graphics and better frame rate and improved cinematics, because they were not the best part of the experience due to some production reasons even back then. And of course, to give this opportunity for new players on new platforms to experience Alan Wake for the first time. This is the original game, remastered. This is not a remake. We have not touched the actual content and the story, just the visuals and the tech.
That is all. I will give you back your dream now.
In the nightmare, a terrible darkness was taking over the world. The lighthouse was the last safe place on Earth.
Okay, so let's talk about beginnings a bit.
Let's act like we're on vacation.
I mean, for all
Go
of
stand
these
next to that
creative
old
projects,
gentleman. I want a shot of you with the
it would be nice
Sure.
to
I'll
claim
even give you a title for the
that
shot.
these
A city
stories
boy,
and these
moments before he got eaten by
experiences,
a
the
bear.
visions of them have just
Hi.
popped out of our heads
There.
and
You picked a good time
being
to visit our town.
ready.
Deerfest is
But
just
in
2
truth,
weeks away.
it takes a long time, and there are many different beginnings for these stories. And sometimes looking back, it's even hard to say
Nice to meet you.
where it all began.
I'm Alan Wake.
Some ideas have been bouncing around in your head for a long time, and then suddenly it burst out from the dark, and there it is, and that's one nugget that ends up being a beginning.
Get an interview. Look, Mr. Maine, I'm on vacation. In fact, I'd appreciate it if we could keep my being here just between the two of us. I'm sure you understand.
One of the beginnings for Alan Wake deals with the structure of the story. Working on Max Payne games, I was writing a movie in my head, traditional 3-act structure.
Good for you.
But that was around the time when everybody was watching DVDs, season DVDs of TV shows. And I started thinking that this would be an awesome structure for a game story because of a similar length.
Bad circulation.
Wow. It's gorgeous, Alan.
It's something, all right. Don't worry, honey. I'll get you inside safe and sound before it gets dark. And I've got the flashlight.
Another beginning also goes back to the time when I was working on Max Payne games. I went to study screenwriting at Theatre Academy of Finland, and I wrote a couple of movie screenplays studying there. And one of them was this horror movie, screenplay for a horror movie that I wrote in Finnish, actually, and the title was Pohjavesi, which translated would be groundwater, but maybe kind of more accurate tonally would be to call it undertow. And there were a few elements there that I later decided to steal from myself, and they all ended up as part of the story of Alan Wake. So in this movie screenplay that I had written called Undertow, there are several elements that I lifted and used in Alan Wake. The Anderson brothers, Thor and Odin, are already part of that. There is this witch-like character from Slavic folklore called Baba Yaga, and obviously her echo is very much present in the Dark Presence, in Barbara Chacker. And this mystical light switch, the clicker, is also part of this horror movie story already.
Alan, I'm upstairs. I have a surprise for you.
Well, hello there.
I'm not the surprise. It's in the study. Go take a look.
The cabin had gone dark. All the lights were out.
Another beginning that also was a lot in my mind already working on Max Payne games, and just bouncing around ideas and wanting to do something different compared to Max Payne, was that it just felt like a big deal and important to me back then that because at Remedy we make action games with action gameplay, and I was thinking a lot about the idea of what if we would have a protagonist, a hero you play, who is not a professional action hero. That felt like a refreshing thought at that point. Somebody who physically and skill-wise is an everyman, even though you could claim that Alan Wake does have attributes that makes him something else than an everyone. But for the challenges he faces, he would be unprepared.
Alice? Alice?
For me, looking back at Alan Wake and the story of Alan Wake,
The gas station was my
certain
best bet.
things
They'd
just
have a phone I
feel
could use.
like
It
they
looked
have
like a
staying
long hike through
power
the forest to get there.
and feel very significant and important for the overall experience. Wake says in the opening line, he talks about the unanswered mystery as something that stays with us the longest. And then we have a poem from Thomas Zane where he says, "Beyond the shadow you settle for, there is a miracle illuminated."
Hello?
So if we take Wake's opening sentence about mystery and Thomas Saint poem about something beyond the shadow you settle for, I feel we are very much at the heart of what Alan Wake is about. I mean, we just tend to have this overwhelming yearning to have answers and to find one final truth about things. I mean, that's something that we want in real life. That's something that we often look for in fiction, because that kind of is something that consoles us. It's a very comforting thought, but then very often our lives are nothing like that. There is no one final answer. You know, things can be looked at from many different viewpoints, and this kind of yearning for mystery it's a great driving force. It's driving force for us for discovery and science, and in detective fiction, it's something that we chase, the answer. It just kind of is a great propelling force to drive us forward. But at the same time, you know, should we have that final answer is the question.
Hey! Hey, you!
Phil!
There's been an accident. I need help. Listen,
Deposit.
I need to...
Premium cabins for rent in...
Oh, hell.
Carl Stuckey. Pleased to meet you. Non-refundable reservation deposit required. Fair and square.
The gas station was closer now.
The idea of
like
a mystery ending as part of this kind of a cryptic line, it's not a lake, it's an ocean, is something that I feel, having that mystery there, leaving it into a mystery that has kept Alan Wake in the minds of many of the fans.
Assuming I'd reach the lights of the gas
So I suppose thinking about the mystery ending of this experience, it is very much something that in fiction that I get excited about and I love is a part of them that you know, something that
After the
you
insanity
will
I just
keep on
experienced in the darkness,
thinking about
the lights of the gas station
and
felt comforting.
pondering
At
about
least for a moment, the
is
sane
something
world
that excites me
reasserted
personally, and from that perspective,
The deer
I love
fest
to
had been
craft
2 weeks away
experiences
when
like
we
that.
arrived. If the
I
day counting
love
the banner was right,
to have
I was missing
elements
a whole week
there
between
that
the
are
night we got
open
here
to
and now.
interpretation, that you can piece
The
it
garage
together
was a
and
mess.
find an
It looked
answer
like
for
someone had
you.
trashed the place, or that there'd been some kind of fight.
I'll keep writing. Outside, there's only darkness. Outside the cabin, outside the story, there's only darkness. I can feel her presence in the dark. Just now, I could smell her perfume in the room. I'll reach...
Rainfall Sheriff Station.
Honey, I'm home.
Back here, sweetie. How was it?
This is Alan Wake's
Worst weather
story,
I've ever seen.
told from his perspective and his point of view. And at the same time, Alice is a hugely important character. She has very little screen time, but the scenes we have Wake together with Alice, we learn a lot about Wake as a character. And Alice remains as his motivation through the whole experience. Do we actually clearly get to see Alice as a person? Or are we seeing the version of Alice
hey,
that
I just
Alan
finished
Wake
those cover
sees
mock-ups.
or
They're on your desk.
thinks
Tell me what you
she
think.
is? Because
kidding.
he is very
don't
much
think you
wrapped
get them
around
done this
his
quickly.
own struggle,
occasion,
his own
I
flaws
can perform all
and
sorts of
thoughts.
miracles, my dear.
Oh, really?
Well, you seemed to think so last night.
This is not her fault. She's a very nice girl and, more importantly, a fan.
I'm a Finn,
as a fan
so
site
I was
dedicated
born
to
in
you.
Finland and
And she
have
was very
lived
helpful
here
when I was
all
looking
my
for you.
life.
Seriously,
At the
Alan,
same
what you
time,
were saying in
I've
the
been
car?
pretty much
Just
raised
listen
with
to yourself.
American popular
What,
culture,
you shot a
comic
guy
books,
and his body just
TV,
disappeared?
movies,
When was the last time you
books.
slept? Are you high?
And it
Have you been drinking?
is a huge
No.
part of the
Look,
inspiration,
Barry, I'm
but it's
missing a week,
always
and someone's got
felt
Alice,
like,
and everything's
you know,
When it
this
sounds
kind
like
of a
when you say
unique
stuff like that,
perspective
don't get me
of
wrong,
using that
it's a good story,
inspiration,
be a
but
bestseller.
being
But
outside
when you start
and
confusing fiction with
looking in,
reality,
and that
you're
gives
buying
us
yourself
a
ticket to
unique
the funny
perspective.
farm.
Wait here.
Or it'll be Deliverance all over again.
Obviously,
Bless you.
being a Finn and having lived here all my life, the culture is very much part of me, and you know, can't help but to bring in elements of it into my writing. And I think that can be seen in the stories of Remedy games, even starting from the original Max Payne. I mean, there was this huge winter storm that was part of the
Barry had the
setting
keys to the car I rented.
of that
It wasn't a
game,
long walk to the
and
visitor
it's
center.
in other
And it
games
wouldn't
as
be
well.
any use to me in the forest. I knew I should have gone to the cops. This wasn't the smartest thing I'd ever done, but I was still angry with Barry for trying to talk me out of it.
Finnish culture, Finnish
The only way to make
landscape,
sure that Rusty was
the
safe
nature,
was to get the power
I
running
feel
and
has
our lights
been
back on.
one way or the other a part of all of Remedy game stories. In Alan Wake, obviously, we have light and dark in a strong role, and if we think about the seasons in Finland and the kind of the schizophrenic nature of winters being very dark and summers being all sunshine way into the night, there is an echo of that in the
I was too
themes
late.
of light
Someone
and
had
dark.
destroyed the
The
circuit
Pacific Northwest
There was no way
landscape,
to get the
everything
lights
is
back on.
huge, but in Finland the nature is much more modest. But beyond that, I feel that there are a lot of similarities in the landscape of it, and also Finland has a lot of small towns with larger than life quirky characters, and you know, having spent all of my childhood summers in the countryside and in small town settings, it certainly is something that resonates and feels like a part of what should be in this story.
Fishing! For those visitors who purchase a park fishing license!
Still on the Finnish culture, I mentioned the horror movie screenplay I wrote, Undertow, and Anderson Brothers, Tor and Odin being a part of that already. Now, that story is set in Finland, and yet we have Tor and Odin as Swedish-speaking Finns in there. Now, we never go into details in Alan Wake on their background, but they just might be Swedes, or they could actually be Finnish Swedes.
I've got a gun. Just keep that light steady on him.
It took a moment, but
So,
then I recognized him.
I feel
He'd
that
been on the
Finnish
ferry when I
culture
first arrived
will
here
be,
with Alice.
in
He
one
knew
way
my
or the
name.
other,
We
present
were headed in the direction of
in all the
Murphy.
stories I'll
There
be
was
writing.
no way this was a
And
coincidence.
in
He
fact,
was
in
the killer.
Control, if we go beyond Alan Wake, we have Ahti, the strange janitor character who definitely has a Finnish background and even a Finnish tango as part of it.
You're gonna give me the manuscript or you'll be sorry.
No! Come back here! I swear I'll kill you if you hurt Alice! Do you hear me? Come back here!
So staying with Ahti, and this is a huge spoiler, in Control's AWE DLC, if you do all the Ahti missions, you'll get a postcard from him. And there he is, at home and happy on the porch of his sauna. And the title places him in the Washington state, So it is this big loop, and it all comes back to Alan Wake.
What the hell?
Rusty had warned me about these traps. It hurt like hell. I was stunned.
Well, I'll show you her trailer. That Rose, she's a nice girl. Always pays her rent.
As a writer, when I'm working on a story, I do like a bit of a guiding structure for it. I mean, there are obviously very different story structures out there. You know, your basic 3-act structure, hero's journey, and all. And I kind of use some of these as a reminder to myself that whenever I kind of run into a problem in the story, then I glance back at these structures if there is any help to be offered.
But I ran a bunch of searches, couldn't find a single thing he wrote. Zane was heavily into diving, so much so that the...
It took me a moment to...
So Alan Wake is a psychological thriller, and we are on this journey into Alan Wake's mind. And if we think about psycho thrillers, you know, there is always that question on, is this true? Is this really happening? Or is this part of the madness? And if it's madness, is nothing true. But obviously we are on this journey together with Wake, and he becomes to believe in it. And so must we, because otherwise the things that we are fighting for are not really there.
I hope Maine
the
could
big theme, obviously, in this thriller is fiction coming true. And a lot of effort from our part writing this was to think about what does that mean and what are the limits. Obviously, if we would have given Alan Wake godlike powers to just change reality on a whim, there would not have been much stakes in this.
My granddaddy settled in Bright Falls in 1911.
Well, you yet, even if it kills me, you hear me? You hear me?
So changing reality with his writing has to be a struggle. It's hard for him. As writing a good story is hard for us. So there is this metaphor going on in this. And essentially what he can do is he can take existing elements and nudge them and tweak them. And in a similar way, I feel that story needs to feel true for it to be a good story.
Up ahead, and a warehouse of some
sort.
So
in the game, through these in-game television inserts, we learn about Alan Wake's writing process, how he was trapped in the study of Birtleck Cabin and how he wrote the manuscript. And we learn that he becomes aware of the Dark Presence's plan and how he starts to hide in keys for his success into the story. I mean, hiding his truth and his escape, his ultimate victory into the story. And there is an interesting metaphor there about writing process in general. Alan Wake hiding keys for his escape and his success into the manuscript story is a metaphor of a writer who is writing story for entertainment with many needs coming in. We are hiding art into our stories, and this is kind of a nugget of wisdom from my drama teacher.
I would meet the kidnapper.
So I've been asked
a
few times, like, how much is Alan Wake, Sam Lake as a writer? And
I'd come to believe that the story
my answer
was
is
coming true.
not really at all. But there is a certain kind of a truth to the idea that there are, of course, we always draw from our own experience. And I think that surprisingly, a few of the Remedy games in some way are metaphors and commentaries on video game development. The stories in our games as a metaphor of making video games. I mean, obviously, in these past 25 years, a considerable amount of my life has gone into making video games and thinking about video games and struggling with the process of making video games. So it's not a surprise that these elements sneak in. Alan Wake in particular is a lot about the process of writing a story and struggling with writing a story. I mean, obviously we see glimpses of him struggling with it and thinking about it. So it was... It's one of the reasons why this game is so close to my heart. Because as a writer and thinking about these things and then being able to use them as elements in the story felt exciting and felt interesting to me as a writer. Now in this commentary I talk a lot about my own perspective and how I see these things, but it's always important to mention that making video games is very much a team effort. There are a lot of brilliant, talented people working at Remedy and we're working on Alan Wake, and there are a lot of inputs. You know, as a writer, you have a story in mind and you refine it to a certain point. But then you have a lot of people bringing interesting, cool, surprising ideas to the table. And then it's a challenge to kind of pick and choose, take those in, and let them change it for the better. For Alan Wake's story, a lot of the backstory we discover along the way comes from 60s, 70s, and even 80s. Now, I was born in 1970, and so kind of when I think about elements of Finnish countryside and cabin life during summers, it has this golden sheen on it that you often have, you know, when you are growing up. And when I think about the backstory of the 70s with the birdleg cabin, these are the kind of feelings and images that I think about.
Groggy.
Part of the big backstory element obviously deals with Thomas Zane, the diver and the poet, Barbara Jacker, Emil Hartman, and Cynthia Weaver, all in this 60s, 70s landscape in this story. I mean, Thomas Zane is a very kind of important character. Also somebody who wrote and also somebody who is now as the diver, very much guiding Alan Wake, but in some ways also haunting him. And many of these elements are set as part of that backstory.
I understand you're confused. I would be more concerned if you weren't suspicious of me, been kidnapped, and supernatural forces of darkness are trying to stop you. We go this way, Alan.
So who is Thomas Zane as a character, really?
So I went along with it.
Through the years, I've read interesting fan theories about him, and I'm not going to dive too deep into these things. But it is an interesting question. Like we see some glimpses, especially in the DLC part of it, where we start to think that is he being completely open and honest with us about his motives and who he really is? And how does this thing loop around between the fictions of Zane and Wake?
You're a skeptic by nature, Alan. We both know this. Everything can be explained logically.
So part of the backstory we are dealing with is about old gods of Asgard, of course. They, in a way, belong into the same continuation as Thomas Zane. I mean, we are talking about artists who, in a way, have come into contact with these dark forces and ended up affecting reality in one way or the other. Old gods of Asgard, of course, through their music. And music is a big part of story and storytelling of Alan Wake.
It seems there's a storm coming. Funny, I don't recall there being a mention of that in the weather forecast. Well, no matter.
Oh, man, you're okay!
Behind the music of Old Gods of Asgard lurks a Finnish band called the Poets of the Fall. And they are good friends of mine. And we obviously started collaborating with poets already with Max Payne 2.
It's like a sheer wall! Al! There's something moving down here!
Barry, it's a take-it! Use a flare, Barry!
Yeah!
Barry, are you alright?
Video game storytelling uses many different mediums, and music definitely is one. And at some point I started thinking about the idea that we would have a fictional band and we would custom create music that would be in-world. And with that we could have lyrics and themes that are part of the storytelling. And that's what Old Gods of Asgard is all about. We had multiple songs created by Poets of the Fall for the first game. We continued with that in Alan Wake's American Nightmare, and now in Control we have done it again with Take Control. Now I feel this is a wonderful direction, and I'm sure that in the future we will be looking into this as well. Other than that, licensing songs for Alan Wake was an important part of the episodic structure, finding fitting songs for end of episode moments. And I'm still very proud and very happy of the selection of songs that we have from David Bowie and Nick Cave and Poe, all greatly fitting into this experience.
Was awesome!
There are many dreamlike elements in Alan Wake.
This way to the farm!
It is something that very much fascinates me in fiction that I like as well. And also what I really enjoy in stories is time travel, time loops. Now, as we progress with Alan Wake's story, we kind of have this mystical vision quest of him traveling back in time into that missing week when he was in Birdle cabin writing the story of the manuscript.
All this time. We need to get this thing moved out of the way.
This is as far as I got before they ambushed me.
Talking about this mystical, weird time loop, that is induced by drinking the moonshine of the Anderson brothers. Wake travels back in a dreamlike way into the missing week, and we witness what actually happened there. How the Dark Presence, how Barbara Jacker took over and made him write the manuscript. And then, in a mystical way, we reach out to Alan Wake himself, writing the manuscript, and snap him out of it.
I had a chance to find out what had happened. I remembered being surprised to see the cabin.
Stay cool. I can get the emergency.
Still talking about this mystical experience of Alan Wake going back in time. I mean, you as the player find him in the study. Obviously, we are Alan Wake, but in first person now in a weird way, and we reach out to him, snap him out of it, and then we see a glimpse of Diver actually doing this, which goes back to this, these weird questions about identity of Thomas Zane and identity of Alan Wake. But this fascination for time loops, obviously, in Alan Wake's American Nightmare, we have time loop element there. So I kind of feel that this is part of the dark place and how time moves there in mysterious ways.
Wait, what do I need to know? What do you need from me?
They can be hurt in the light, only in the light. And I need to find Cynthia Weaver. She can help me stop this.
As part of the story, we discover that there are some people in Bright Falls who do know about these supernatural forces of darkness. And they have formed this loose secret society to deal with these things. Part of it is the sheriff, Sarah Breaker, and we connected to her father, Frank Breaker, as well. Now, it's not widely known, but there were a couple of comic books that we created after Alan Wake, and one of them actually, one issue deals with Frank Breaker as a character.
Oh, I remember now.
So Sarah Breaker's father, Frank Breaker, who doesn't get any screen time in the game, but in a comic book issue that came out after, we do discover that he is contacting authorities when he learns about this. And beyond that now, quite a few years later in Control, and specifically in AWE DLC of Control, we actually learned that Frank is connected to Federal Bureau of Control, and he is reaching out to FBC when this crisis in Alan Wake happens.
Well, at least we're safe for now.
I don't see Barry.
Look! Wait! Maybe that's him. That's the way to the chopper.
So we have the worlds of Alan Wake and Control connected to each other, as is now clear from Control and especially Control's AWE DLC. They are both part of Remedy Connected Universe, which has been a long time in the making, and now it's finally out in the open. So that is something that I am really excited about, and I am thinking about a lot of opportunities and plans in the future.
fatty acids are good for your heart.
See this headlamp? It's like a superpower. I can just look at one of those
So,
things and they
now, with Control and with AWE, we finally seeing new glimpses of Alan Wake. That is, in itself, very, very exciting. I can't say that he's alive and well, because he probably is not well in the depths of the dark place. But he is alive, and kind of Control proves that. And all the more reason to be happy about Remastered coming out. So obviously in this story we have this horror story manuscript, Departure. And Departure name of course comes from beginning of hero's journey. And it is a horror story and it's set in Pacific Northwest. Close to the end of the game we see this glimpse of a talk show with Alan Wake as a guest, talking about the last book in the series of Alex Casey books, these hard-boiled crime books. But he does mention that now he wants a departure from what he has done before.
At least I didn't have to worry about her.
So the horror story manuscript of Departure is literally a departure for Alan Wake as a writer. Alan Wake has made his name as a writer and his success writing hard-boiled crime stories, where the main character is a fictional detective called Alex Casey. We get a glimpse into this life through in-game TV insert of him appearing in a late-night talk show promoting the last and final Alex Casey book, The Sudden Stop. And obviously this very much mirrors the Remedy success story. We created a hard-boiled crime story game called Max Payne. But Alex Casey is not the same as Max Payne. Rather, it's very much me wanting to insert a bit of hard-boiled crime story into the world of Alan Wake as well, simply because I love it.
My head was about to explode and the light hurt my eyes. I needed my sunglasses and painkillers to dull the pain. In one of my finer moments of self-deception, I swore to quit drinking.
So Alan Wake comes from New York City. And for years, he was writing crime stories set in New York City. We have a couple of these flashbacks to New York, and that's how New York is present in Alan Wake. I love New York. I love it as an idea. Actually, like, you know, writing the Max Payne games that were also set in New York. I had never visited New York in my life. Everything kind of inspiration for it came from pop culture, from movies mainly. So to me, it's this archetype of a fictional city.
Vampire in the sun. There was a message waiting for me on the machine.
You have one new message. Ow! Are you still asleep?
I had enough imagination to make up something like this.
Still talking about New York, you know, as this inspiring, almost like a magical place, is that obviously now, with Control, we are back in New York once again. And I honestly wouldn't be surprised if down the line we would have more games set there. But this idea of not having visited New York while writing Max Payne games is kind of a thing overall. Like to this day, I have never been in Washington State wilderness, in any of the small towns. Yes, I've been to Seattle multiple times, but not to actual locations that have inspired Alan Wake.
I will kill your wife.
So, I feel that there are many different ways of doing research for writing. And it, sometimes, obviously, it's great to visit the location where the story is set. But I don't feel that that's necessarily something that you need to do. Or, in some cases, it can even start to kind of mean that the story you want to tell ends up not working because you know too much about this location. In our stories, the inspiration comes from popular culture more than anything. Couple of words about the Bird-Leg Cabin, which is a very central, very mystical location in Alan Wake. There is an obvious connection to Slavic folklore with the witch Baba Yaga, who has this cabin on bird legs. And we have the two round windows that are kind of eyes of a bird. And in the study where Alan Wake ends up riding, we have a taxidermy owl between these windows. So a lot of these references to this bird. But at the same time, I feel that for every Finnish person, the idea of a summer cabin and these magical sunlit nights of summer hold this very, very special place in their minds.
Nice to see you, too.
So the Bird-Leg Cabin is this mystical place, and in terms of like lore that we start establishing in Control through the lens of what Federal Bureau of Control thinks about these things and how they see these things, the cabin is definitely a place of power with mystical properties. Alright then, we are getting close to the end of the game and close to the end of this commentary. I would like to still say that when we started talking about this opportunity of creating a remastered version of the original game, it felt important to us that it would be the original story and original experience. Yes, we have updated and improved the visuals and the technical aspects of it, but beyond that, this is the same experience, the original experience. Or maybe there are just these tiny small things sprinkled about that if you are paying attention, you can notice. Maybe you should keep your eyes open for them.
Put the light back on!
It wasn't true. Nothing like that had ever happened.
You're not my Barbara.
Tom, let me go.
That's it. I hope you have enjoyed playing Alan Wake Remastered. I hope you have enjoyed listening to me rambling on in this commentary. Thank you very much.
Never written you back. You came back wrong. Your heart is filled with darkness.
Put that knife away, Thomas. Put it down.
I was filled with darkness. Cut it out. I'll take you back to the depths you came from.
Filled with darkness.
Get away!
Now you will never get her back. I am much older than you. Older than your first work of art. I will find a new face to wear. Someone else to dream me free.